Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Analyst's Day-to-Day NFL show presented by Stats Perform. I am your host, Mike Leon. We're back, gents. We have not canceled yet. We're back for another episode. If you saw our last episode across our YouTube channel or you listen to the audio wherever you get your podcast, you may know this, but the stats and insights that you're going to see here today on the show are all presented from the good folks at The Analyst. You can check out theanalyst.com and Stats Perform's incredible tool, PressBox Live. You can head to statsperform.com today to find out how PressBox Live is being utilized by NFL teams, broadcasters, and more to help augment their game day coverage. Joining me now to break down all of the upcoming Week 3 action in the National Football League is AI data analyst over at Stats Perform, my buddy Kyle Cunningham-Rhoads. Kyle, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, great to be here. 2 weeks in, already lots of surprises, a couple key injuries. Pumped to talk about it.
We got tons to talk about. And NFL writer over at The Analyst, you can check out all his work at theanalyst.com. Nicholas McGee. Nicholas, welcome back to the show.
Delighted to be here again, Mike, and ready to talk some more football. An extremely exciting season.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, I'm depressed, but we'll get to that in a second. As a matter of fact, let's get right into some of our surprises. Kyle alluded to it. We all know why I'm depressed. Let's talk about some of our early surprises, teams that are 2-0, 0-2, or even a team that has been 1-1 and has looked good or bad or indifferent. Kyle, let's start with you. What's been the team that surprised you so far here as we get to Week 3 of the NFL season?
Well, I was torn between the Raiders and the Bengals, but in the interest of your mental health, I think I'll go with the Bengals.
Thank you.
And I think it's not necessarily it's their record that's surprising. I think they've actually played better than an 0-2 record so far. But the stagnation of their offense is really what's been surprising. I mean, they're second to last in quality rush percentage. Their run game has been not there at all, despite facing 6 or fewer boxes almost 2/3 of the time. And just, I mean, kind of weird first game with tons of turnovers and missed field goals and an injured long snapper. They are, if we look at the deeper data and how they performed this year, we actually have them 10th in our power rankings. So we do think that better times are coming, but the 0-2 record is definitely surprising, despite the fact that we actually had them kind of overrated heading into the year.
Yeah, and it's funny too because you would have thought, especially Sunday, no Dak Prescott for the Cowboys, maybe they could get off the shot and get their first victory of the season. Nicholas, I turn to you now. What's been a surprise for you so far in the early start of the season?
I'll head out west and go to Los Angeles for the Rams. Maybe not the biggest shock in the world that they lost to the Bills. It was more the manner of that defeat, in that they were really kind of no match for Buffalo. That game could have been a lot larger scoreline. And then they nearly blow it against the Falcons as well. Nearly let Atlanta avenge some 28-3 ghosts coming all the way back there. The offensive line is struggling. There's a lot of injuries there. I think through 2 weeks, they only got 50% of win rate and pass block win rate. They don't have a secondary weapon behind Cooper Kupp with no Odell Beckham there. He's got 24 receptions, but no other wide receiver has more than 6. Run game's worse than the NFL by yards per play, yards per rush of 2.66. That's pretty terrible. And they've conceded 58 points through 2 games. It's tough. Matthew Stafford's playing okay, but it's not really been a recipe for going back to back. And at this point in the season, they're very reliant on big plays from the likes of Jalen Ramsey, who came up and saved the game for them last week.
Yeah, the Rams have been a little bit shocking too, but I mean, the Bills, I want to stay on that train because I'm going to pick a team that's been a surprise to me. They just played the Bills on Monday Night Football and got trounced, and that's the Tennessee Titans. I think the Bills are a juggernaut unto themselves, but the Titans have been really surprising to me. Obviously, we all know what happened last season, losing in the playoffs to the Bengals and Joe Burrow at home after having the 1 seed. Ryan Tannehill was replaced middle of that game for Malik Willis, obviously the rookie quarterback out of Liberty University, where my sister went to school. So we know that there's been conflict there already in the preseason between both of those guys. Tannehill saying, obviously, in the offseason, I'm not here to help anybody that's sitting behind me, right? Derrick Henry has only rushed for 100 yards total, 107 yards so far in 2 games. They have not looked good in their 2 matchups so far, playing a divisional opponent to start the season. And then now what's happened this past Monday night against the Bills. And of course, they play the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that just had a devastating loss this past Sunday. So a stat real quick for you guys from PressBox Live on the Titans. Funny enough, going into this matchup, the Raiders have won their last 3 road games against the Titans. Of course, now I feel like a broadcaster who just jinxed it. The last time the Raiders won 4 straight road games against a single opponent was a 6-game streak against the Chiefs from 2007 to 2012. We'll see if that happens on Sunday, but the Titans need a win. The Raiders need a win. Everyone needs a win from all these games we're going to be talking about. So let's get into some teams that have just kept winning and some surprising. Let's start with the first matchup that we're going to analyze with the Bills and the Dolphins. We talked about the Bills and the juggernaut that they are. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, the offense is rolling. The defense is playing exceptionally well. We saw what they did Thursday to open the season. We saw what they continued against Monday night, holding the Titans to 7 points. I'll start with you, Nicholas, first. Give me good, bad, battle of the unbeatens here. Tua versus Allen. We saw what Tua did last week with 6 touchdown passes against the Ravens. What are you looking for as some of the keys to watch here in this matchup?
Yeah, carrying on that theme with the Dolphins offense exploding last week against the Ravens. They're facing a pretty banged up secondary this week. Both safeties for the Bills nursing injuries. And you've got Dane Jackson, the cornerback, had that very scary injury on Monday Night Football, which you can't envision he's going to play anytime soon. And obviously Trey White's still on the PUP list, I believe, so he's not playing. And you've got 2 receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle who can absolutely devastate opposing defenses. With their speed. We have a stat at Stats Perform, which is burn percentage, which is how often is a receiver winning their match with a cornerback, and from that we can calculate things kind of burn yards per route, which is how much separation they're gaining from the defender when they do in that matchup. Tyreek Hill is second among receivers with at least among receivers that got to target at least 10 times this season, with 9.6, and Jalen Waddle is 7 with 7.6. So these are guys that are through 2 games at least, they're burning people on a ridiculous rate, and they're going to go up against a defense that's going to have to maybe work a patchwork secondary. So it's if any team can keep pace with the Dolphins team, if they carry that on, it's Josh Allen and the Bills. But it's going to be really interesting to see whether the defense can keep the Dolphins under wrap at all.
Yeah, last week was a surprise. Obviously, there was 3 teams in the National Football League that overcame 3 touchdown scores. The Dolphins were one of those. Obviously, they were trailing in that game to the Ravens. Huge comeback there for their rookie coach. Pal, I'll turn to you now. Bills, Dolphins, this is a rivalry. This game taking place 26 minutes from my house. So maybe I'll venture up there on Sunday to watch the Battle of the Unbeatens. What are you looking for in this matchup between these longtime AFC East rivals?
Yeah, I'm sticking on the same side of the ball. I think that the Bills are going to be able to rack up points. We've got the Dolphins as our 22nd ranked defense so far. Then the Bills are just an absolute juggernaut on offense. But that offensive explosion that we saw last week, how do they manufacture yards against that stout Bills defense? Even missing players, they still have. I mean, they're missing their top cornerback, and they've still been a great defensive unit to start the year. And I think that the improvements that the Dolphins have made across the offense, notably their run game last year was absolutely abysmal. They could not generate any push whatsoever. This year they have a quality rush percentage of 55%. That's 50% league average. That's 10th in the league. But they're doing that through getting the ball in the hands of their playmakers in space. So not necessarily your traditional run game. So their actual blocking win percentage on run blocks is only 68%, which is 20th in the league. So they're really they're using end arounds and jets, getting their guys in space, their speed guys that they've got all over. And then really the big thing with Tua is the most successful type of play that they've run this year is traditional drop back passes. So that is your 2.5 to 3 second 3-step drop, sort of traditional pass sets for the offensive line. On the year, they've averaged 13.6 yards per play on drop back passes. That's 8 yards per play across the league. So that's a pretty significant advantage that they're working with. But the Bills' defense on drop back passes is only allowing 3 yards per play. And really the big thing for the Bills is their improved pass rush. And the worrisome thing for the Dolphins is the thing with drop back passing is you need to have good pass protection. And this year they're winning less than half of their pass rush matchups. They've only won 49%. That's 31st in the league. And so being able to navigate how to get the ball down the field to their playmakers while also not having Tua decapitated by that Bills pass rush, that's going to be the matchup that I'm really interested in seeing how the head coach schemes that up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, listen, the Bills are averaging 36 points per game on the offensive side of the football, 8.5 they're allowing on the defensive side of the football. Quick stat here presented by PressBox Live. Head to statsperform.com today to check out this fantastic new tool in our product kit. The last game since 1932 with at least 469 yards and 6 touchdowns. What a specific stat, boy. We're really good at that stuff. Tua just did that this past Sunday, like I mentioned. Patrick Mahomes, 6 touchdowns and 478 yards passing last time in 2018. Drew Brees back in 2015, 7 touchdowns and 505 yards. You can check out that stat over on theanalyst.com. Let's do a quick prediction on this game. KCR, I'll turn to you first. Who do you got winning this matchup down here in Miami?
So I've got it as a close game, actually. I've got it as a 23-21 Bills victory, lower scoring than what you would think. I think that there's some turnovers in this game. I think that that both teams' defenses show up, and Miami is a tough place to score. It's going to be really, really hot. There's going to be a lot of winded players on the field, but I do think that the Bills come out victorious.
Well, I can speak to Miami being hot. I'm dying right now, and I'm inside. Nicholas, let's turn to you. A prediction on Sunday's matchup here.
Yeah, I'm with Kyle. I think both offenses will score points, but it's tough to get back against Josh Allen at the moment with the way that offense is playing. And he's got arguably the best receiver in the league at the minute, Stephon Diggs, the only person who's averaging more burn yards per out than Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs with 11.1. So they've got that firepower to keep pace for whatever Miami can do, and I think they'll come out on top here.
Yeah, I'm with you guys, although I'm going to take a different route. I don't think this game will be close. I got to be honest, of what I've seen so far of the Dolphins, I just think that the Bills are on such a roll right now. And in this rivalry game, we talked about the external factors, but I really think the Bills will come out and establish some dominance, 30-14, 30-10, something like that. I just don't see the way Tua can move the ball down the field, especially the way this Bills defense is playing. Love to be proven wrong because I know a lot of Dolphin fans in my family want to prove me wrong. So let's move to our second matchup here because we got a lot of interesting matchups happening this Sunday. The Ravens and the Patriots, speaking of the team that just lost last week to the Dolphins, Lamar Jackson has not signed his contract extension. He's going to play out this season. The Ravens are kicking themselves for blowing a home game and could have started the year 2-0. Meanwhile, the Patriots last week went into Pittsburgh. Mac Jones played pretty decent, and the Patriots were able to pull out a road victory in Pittsburgh. Nicholas, let's start with you. What are you looking for in this matchup between two 1-1 teams that really need to keep pace with, obviously, we just talked about last matchup, two AFC East opponents. The Patriots can't afford to fall behind this early in the season with an L. The Ravens, after this Thursday night matchup between Steelers-Browns, which we're currently recording on, whoever wins that will lead the North. Give me some things that you're watching, some takeaways for this game on Sunday.
Yes, kind of a continuation of a theme on that, being able to keep pace or not. And it's really difficult to see the Patriots being in a position to do what the Dolphins did to the Ravens last week. It's going to be an uphill battle for New England, really. They haven't really got the weapons on the offensive side of the ball to keep pace with a Ravens attack that's playing really, really well. Mac Jones is not quite been as accurate as last season. He's throwing what we call well-thrown balls. That's accurate and well-thrown on 76.6% of his passes. That's below the league average of 78.9 through 2 games. So he's still pretty accurate, but not as much as he was last year when that was very impressive in his rookie season, how accurate it was. Doesn't really have the weapons working, like I say. And the performance of what happened to the Ravens last week kind of really overshadowed how well Lamar Jackson played. He had that spectacular touchdown run, and he's building a superb rapport with Rashad Bateman, who was one of my favorites out of that draft class that he came out of. And he leads the NFL at the minute with in yards after the catch per reception with 16.3, which is quite a lot. The one thing you can say for the Patriots is their offensive line is playing pretty well. So at least there's some room for optimism if they can protect Mac and he can actually find the playmakers you do have. You saw the deep touchdown to Nelson Aguilar last week in the win over the Steelers, and maybe there's a shot, but it really looks like an uphill battle for me.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you on that one, too. We'll wait for the predictions on that front. KCR, give me a little bit of your takeaways here. Lamar versus Mac up in Foxborough. What are you expecting out of this game? What is something that you're watching?
I think my focus is going to be on the Ravens offense. I think they will be able to put up some points, but I think that the run game that they really want to live with has struggled so far this year. They only have a quality rush percentage of 41%. That's about 10% less than league average. And part of that reason is because they're facing huge boxes with regularity. They've got 8+ man boxes 27% of the time. That's 5th in the league. Their run blocking has been pretty poor. They've seen a lot of injuries on the offensive line already. Ronnie Stanley has not played yet, and now they've got Patrick McCarry, who is just an invaluable player for them, a former center, played right tackle for them last year and is now back at left tackle. And a rookie center who's looked like a rookie a little bit. Tyler Linderbaum looks. He's had some struggles in the early going. That's not to say he's going to be a bad player, but he's struggled a little bit against some bigger bodies. The Patriots defense is really focused on stopping the run. They've got a bunch of big-bodied guys in the middle there with Davon Godchaux and Carl Davis. And if the Ravens can't get the run going, to what extent can they air it out? I think that the passing game really relies on a lot of sort of deep drop back play action concepts. And really the surprising thing with the Patriots so far has been the inefficiency of their secondary. The league average in matchup win rate, and this is players who are in either man-to-man coverage or sort of sticky zone coverage, whether or not they are creating separation on their defenders. And while the Patriots offense has been able to do that, their defense is actually last. So through 2 games, they're losing more than half of their matchups. They've really sort of losing J.C. Jackson was huge. They've got sort of a new looking secondary compared to what they've had the last couple of years. The Ravens don't necessarily have the most athletic group of pass catchers. I think Mark Andrews is probably their best pass catcher, and he's a tight end. So sort of the weakness versus the weakness, which one succeeds?
Right. I want to give a quick stat before we get into our predictions on this part. And obviously this is presented by PressBox Live. Ravens are 2-9 versus the Patriots in the regular season play, including an 0-6 mark up in Foxborough. That's a telling stat. We'll see if the O continues. In the postseason, however, the Ravens are 2-2 against New England, and they won both those games at Gillette Stadium. So let's get a prediction. KCR, I'll stay with you. Give me a prediction for Sunday's game, Ravens-Pats.
So the Ravens are currently favored in this game, but our modeling has the Patriots winning 24-21. It's going to be a really good game. It's one of we have a little metric called watchability ranking, and it's got a 9.5 out of 10, which is among the best that you can have. It should be a good game, but we do think that the Patriots keep that trend going and come out with a victory.
Nicholas, and by the way, I agree with that watchability stat. That'll be a game I'll be keeping my eye on as I'm throwing something at the Raiders doing something stupid, probably. Nicholas, what are you watching for? I mean, give me your prediction, on this matchup between Ravens and Pats.
Yeah, I go the other way. I'm going to go against the model and go with the Ravens. I just have a very hard time believing that this Patriots offense can hang with the Ravens. I think the Ravens will be able to throw the ball and put up points, and I just can't see Mac Jones with the talent he has around him, which isn't very much at the moment, being able to live with that. So give me the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take the road, even though I just gave that stat of how they've performed in the regular season. My money's on Lamar, and he's betting on himself for this season, and I think he will have a good game come Sunday. They need him to have one for sure, and I think the sting of last week is fresh in their minds, and they know they can't afford to fall behind in the division. Let's move to another division matchup. Let's fly a little bit west here to Arizona, a team that just broke my heart last week, guys. If you will allow me a second to somberly deliver this. It's a playoff rematch between the Rams and the Cardinals. Arizona last week winning a game that I for sure thought I would have already in the bag, overcoming a 20-0 lead that they trailed at halftime. We saw Kyler Murray dancing around and buying time, a 28-second drill for a 2-point conversion against the Raiders. This is a playoff rematch. Nicholas alluded to it earlier about the Rams almost blowing it to the Falcons late in that game. So they just hang on. Both teams now 1-1. Let's start with you, Nicholas. What are you looking for? You cover the NFC West extensively. We know how much you love your Niners out there. Give me some of your takeaways and what to watch for in this NFC West matchup.
Well, if the Falcons should have offered a get-right game for the Rams, and obviously the Rams still won that game, but it might not what we call traditional get-right game and how close it was. This is the get-right game. I have no faith in this Cardinals defense being able to stop the Rams. Are allowing 6.39 yards per play, which is tied for the 4th worst in the NFL. I just don't think this team is set up to stop the Rams in any way, shape, or form. They had the big win in Vegas, but I think that was a perfect encapsulation of just how entirely reliant they are on Kyler Murray. Obviously, with the extent he's on scramble. And the amazing thing with Kyler is how often he does those scrambles, how consistent these Houdini acts are, where he just keeps running and finds something even through the air on the ground. But it's just not a sustainable way to win football games. So we have a stats perform, which is relatively new, which it is called in-design percentage. So it's how often are you operating within the structure of the offense. Kyler is only operating within the structure of the offense 64.1% of the time, which is the fewest in the league. There's only 4 quarterbacks that are operating out of structure for you. And it's just not sustainable to expect to win that way. And I think the Rams will take advantage of the Cardinals' extreme deficiencies on defense, as the Chiefs did in week 1. And I think they'll win this one quite comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like the Raiders were on their way to exploiting a lot of that, but some second half adjustments there. And again, time of possession was a huge thing in the second half. Cardinals dominated that time of possession. Before you go, KCR, a quick stat for you, similar to what you were just mentioning, Nicholas. Arizona's won just one of their past 11 divisional matchups against the Rams. They were 1-2, obviously, last year. That playoff game was not even close. KCR, what are you watching for in this matchup between the Rams and the Cardinals?
Man, I had that 1-10 stat all queued up.
Beat you to it.
I think I completely agree with Nicholas. I think the Cardinals defense is just not very good. They are through 2 games. They're 30th in winning sort of run defense matchup. They're 30th in generating pressure. They're 31st in winning matchups in the secondary. The Rams should not have any trouble scoring, and so what that sort of leads us to is the other side of the ball, and whether or not the Cardinals can score at all. And then really everybody knows that Aaron Donald is amazing, but I think that a little more Aaron Donald appreciation stats are never something that anybody's going to complain about. So through 2 games, he's had 21 one-on-one pass rush matchups against offensive linemen. He's won 16 of them. That's a 76% clip. That's just ridiculous. The league average for defensive tackles is just over 20%. In the run defense game, he's had 17 one-on-one matchups. He's won 14 of those. So really only 3 times has he been beaten by a run blocker. The Cardinals have actually had a lot of success on the ground, which I think probably kind of lends itself to the fact that they've been behind. They face really light boxes at all times. People are playing the pass, and then they go and sort of use Kyler for those 10-yard runs here and there. But I don't see anybody. I mean, having Justin Pugh back at left guard is certainly helpful. But I think that just as we saw last year in that final play of the game where Aaron Donald just blew through the right guard and sacked Kyler Murray, I don't see a way that the Cardinals can keep up. Granted, I didn't think they had much of a chance last week, and they played their sort of traditional Kyler go do something offense, and he went and did something, and they came back and won that game, as fluky as it was. So anything can happen, but I'm in total agreement that I see them being completely outclassed by the Rams.
How dare you prey on my feelings? Nicholas, I know, follows me on Twitter, so he saw my emotions extend to the Twitter battlefield, we'll call it. Kyler Murray is very special, but when he is special, you get that. You get that in small batches and doses. That's the problem, I think, with Arizona. Not enough consistency. We saw in week 1 how dominant the Chiefs were against that defense. Let's get predictions from both of you. KCR, I'll turn back to you. Prediction for Sunday's game. That sounds like we all like the Rams, but let me hear it.
Yeah, I've got the Rams by 7. I've got it a 27-20 win. I think that they really control the game, and the Cardinals maybe score a garbage time touchdown to get to that 20 point.
Nicholas, how about you?
Yeah, I have the Rams too, and I think 7 points is a bit conservative to me. After multiple score win for the Rams to me, I've seen no way, as I said, that it can stop the Rams on offense. And on defense, obviously, you've got a game back of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. I think they're too good to let what happened last week happen to them.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm on the Rams train. The Rams have been so good against NFC opponents. It's been the extension to the AFC opponents. Well, obviously with the with the exception of the Bengals last year. But we saw what the Bills did week 1. Falcons obviously came back late in that game. I like the Rams as well, too. Let's stay in the NFC, and let's talk about two teams that feel like they can unseat the Rams this year to represent the NFC, in the Super Bowl. The Buccaneers and the Packers, this happening down in Tampa, the matchup between Rodgers and Brady. A quick stat for you guys before we get rolling here as these teams get set to play each other. The last 5 games against the Packers, Tom Brady has thrown 11 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. That's that according to PressBox Live. Head to statsperform.com to check out the PressBox Live tool. I want to let's start with you, KCR, first on this matchup between the Packers and the Buccaneers. Packs getting off the schneid last week, obviously beating the Bears. If you haven't seen that Twitter clip of the Bears fan telling his girlfriend to leave him alone so he can decompress after this loss, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And it's exactly how I felt at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time as my kids were going to bed. But regardless of that, let's talk a little bit about Packs, Bucs. Buccaneers obviously 2-0 now under Todd Bowles. What are some things that you're watching for in this matchup between Brady and Rodgers, Kyle?
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing when I first started looking at this game is I looked at the Vegas odds and I saw that the total for this game was 41.5. And I was like, all right, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, 41.5 total, like that, there's no way. And then we ran our model and we have 43. So it's not, the key for this is, as good as those two quarterbacks are, the story I think is really going to be the defenses in this game. I think that both teams are dealing with pretty significant injuries, specifically along the offensive line. And that is such a key to having a successful offense, is being able to protect the passer and generate space for your running backs to run. I think the Bucs are now down to their 3rd string left tackle. They've got their 3rd string center in after some preseason injuries. They've got a rookie starting at left guard. The right side of the line is really good. Tristan Wirfs is an all-pro player. Shaq Mason's a really good player. But that Packers defensive line is extremely stout. They're sort of a top half of the league team in both winning pass rush matchups and winning run blocking matchups. The Bucs have been a bottom half of the league in both of those categories as well. I'm not sure where the sort of consistent. I think we see a lot more points a lot more punts than what we're sort of would be expected to see in a game like this. And really, I think that the best unit of either team this year has been that Bucs pass defense. They added a couple of safeties into the fold, and really their 2 cornerbacks, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean. I know Davis signed a big contract this year to stay with the Bucs. He's a really good player, but I think Jamel Dean is an absolute superstar. He's got world-class speed. The Saints tried to get the ball down the field to Olave multiple times last week. They did get him open once against Davis, and then there was a pass interference penalty. But the inability of Rodgers to be able to take those deep shots due to the speed that the Bucs have in their secondary, it's understandable why this is going to be kind of a low-scoring game. And so really, it's sort of which way do the turnovers fall, who makes the bad decision, who misses the field goal. I think that's going to be kind of the difference in this game.
Yeah, super interesting matchup to watch too, especially the tale of the tape between the Packers week 1 and how Rodgers was frustrated with his receiving core to what they look like against the Bears in week 2 at home. Nicholas, what are some things that you're watching for as the Packers get set to head down to Tampa and take on the Bucs?
Yeah, on a similar theme to Casey. I mean, first off, I wish this game was at Lambeau Field. I think aesthetically that'd be a lot more pleasing to watch than Raymond James Stadium and the big pirate ship. I would prefer it to be at Lambeau, but never mind. And yeah, I think the same, similar to what KCR said, it's about this Bucs secondary, which this defense has been outstanding through 2 games on the road, and they didn't allow a touchdown until 3 minutes left in the Superdome against Saints last week, which is extraordinary when you play your first 2 games on the road. Aaron Rodgers, tough start week 1, but he's actually playing pretty well in terms of accuracy. His well thrown rate is 89.3%, which is trails only Josh Allen, so he's delivering the ball really, really well. And it's more on his receiver group, really. I mean, they're pretty banged up this week, and they're quite young, so they've got to go, and they've got a really tough draw here, as KCR said, against Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, and talent they have at safety as well in the Buccaneers. So it's can those receivers get it done against that secondary? And then on the other side of the ball, it's like, as KCR said again, it's Brady's success probably tied to his offensive line. They've only won 65% of their pass protection matchups, which sounds okay when you say 65%, but if you're losing your pass block matches 35% of the time against a front that's as good as Green Bay's, you're probably in trouble. It's both quarterbacks have significant issues to deal with. One of the receivers going against those corners, and Brady in his pass protection.
It's funny. You just said the 65-35, and I think of a baseball player, right? 300 batting average is great, but that's only 30% of the time, right? You're doing something wrong 70%. I want to give a quick stat as well from Press Box Live, and I thought this was a super interesting stat because we just talked about how dominant the Bills have been, and in terms of how many points they're giving up per game. Tampa Bay's defense has allowed just 13 points this season, the fewest in the NFL. The only 2 seasons in which the Bucs have allowed fewer points through 2 games. 1992 when they allowed 10, and in 2003 when they allowed 12. Remember, in 2002 they won the Super Bowl against my Raiders. God, we always come back to the Raiders. All right, let's get predictions. Enough of the Raiders; they stink. Nicholas, give me your predictions on Sunday. Packers, Bucs.
I've got the Packers in this one. I just think Rodgers will find a way. I mean, it's a really, really tough game against defense, but I think this is one of those. Rodgers proves everyone wrong. He's a shaky start against the Vikings. I mean, they beat the Bears, but it was the Bears team that couldn't really live with them, can't throw the ball, and he's going up against, it's probably the last meeting of these 2 amazing quarterbacks, one in their 40s, one nearly 40, and I think that extra motivation will put Rodgers, he'll find a way, even with that young and kind of banged up receiver group.
And KCR, I turn to you, buddy. What do you got prediction-wise, score-wise down there in Tampa?
Yeah, so these are two teams that are in the top 10 of our team ratings, which they sort of have constantly updated depth charts. So if a big injury happens, it doesn't matter what's happened before, it'll adjust. So these are both top 10 teams. We've got a watchability rating of this game of 9.98. That's about as best as you can possibly do. It should be the game of the week. But I've got the Bucs pulling it out. I think our projection is 22-21 Bucs, kind of an odd score, but I think again it's going to be an low-scoring game with these 2 guys. Something weird's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on the Buccaneers part of this. I meant to throw in that stat that I mentioned about Brady in this matchup, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Rodgers, on the flip side of that, 8 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions in 5 career games against Tampa Bay, making them the only NFL team Rodgers has thrown more interceptions against than touchdowns. That stat from Press Box Live. Give me the Buccaneers 24-17 down there in Tampa. Last matchup, we seem to be getting a few rivalry games here, or at least games where people have played each other enough times to have a lot of tape on. Packers, Buccaneers, obviously. But the Monday night game is the rivalry. Giants, Cowboys. Happening there at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Huge matchup. The Giants have been gangbusters to start the season, and I use that term really relatively. They won on obviously a 2-point conversion down in Tennessee. They held the Panthers late. Baker Mayfield throwing the ball all over the place. So 2-0 for the Giants to start. I'm sure Giant fans are really happy with what Coach Dable has been able to do there. Saquon Barkley returning to a little bit of form here. Daniel Jones hasn't done too much, but hasn't cost them anything. And they're 2-0 in the win column. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are 1-1, fresh off a victory against the Bengals. And we know the Bengals struggle so far this season, but still missing Dak Prescott, their quarterback. Nicholas, let's start with you. What are you expecting for in the last game of week 3 of the NFL season here between the Cowboys and the Giants in the Meadowlands?
For me, this is all about one man, and it's the star of the show for the Cowboys so far, and that's Micah Parsons, who continues to be an absolute ridiculous force for that defense, and whether the Giants' offensive line, which has been okay, kind of middle of the pack in pass block win rate, whether they can handle him at all. Parsons, just give you some numbers here. He's played 18 games in his career. He's got 17 sacks, which is absolutely absurd. 24 tackles for loss. He had 30 quarterback hits last season. He's already got 7 this season. He's just a guy that you can't keep out of the game. And if the Giants can't keep him out of the game, then that sets up the Cowboys really, really well. You can give Cooper Rush, who's limited as a quarterback, short fields. I think just on the Cowboys offensive side, I think they've got to get Tony Pollard more involved in the game. You see, every time he comes on the field, you just see him do something explosive, particularly in the passing game. 4 receptions, 55 yards last week. Got great burst in the open field. They're lacking weapons. As no Michael Gallup, still Dalton Schultz got hurt against the Bengals. So I think if Parsons can wreck shop as he does so consistently again, which you back him to do, and they can get the ball to CeeDee Lamb, get the ball to Pollard, the Cowboys should be set up really well here.
We're going to see how that plays out on Monday. I think it's one of the most intriguing matchups, just given obviously the attention the Cowboys get year in and year out, and then they lose their quarterback in week one. And then the upstart Giants, obviously, the Eagles are 2-0 in division. We didn't even mention them. And so we know that neither team can afford a loss here in the loss column, given what the Eagles have been able to do so far in their first two games. We'll see how they do in week three as well. KCR, what are you looking for in this matchup between NFC East rivals?
I think it's a really bad matchup for the Giants. I think that what the Giants want to do on defense is play really good pass coverage. They've got Adoree Jackson has been phenomenal this year as their number one corner. He's got faced 10. He's been in man-to-man coverage 10 times, no losses. Zone matchup, 17 of them, only 3 losses. He's sort of year-over-year baselines in the top 10 corners in the league. He's really fantastic. Before he got hurt in week one, Aaron Robinson was also fantastic. The guy that they put in last week, Cordell Flott, was not as good. So if Aaron Robinson's back, that's great. The problem with the Giants and the way that they run, or the Cowboys and the way that they want to run their offense, is that they'd really love to live on the ground. They've got the best right guard in football in Zach Martin. They'd love to run it just right over him. The Giants' run defense is a little porous. They've got some decent defensive linemen. Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams are both fantastic run defenders. But really, other than that, there's not much. You get up to the second level, and the linebackers are small. Xavier McKinney is, I think, one of the best safeties in the league. But again, that's in pass coverage. I think that the Cowboys just pound it, and trusting Daniel Jones to take some limited opportunities and to make good out of them, I think is really tough. I think that I'm really excited to see Parsons specifically rushing against Andrew Thomas. I hope that they put him over Andrew Thomas a couple times. Andrew Thomas has been fantastic both this year and last. He's really a sort of a top 5 left tackle in the league now. He's really excellent, at least in pass blocking. I think that the Giants offense just leaves a little too much to be desired with their sort of makeshift group of wide receivers. I do really like Sterling Shepard as long as he's healthy. I think he makes some plays in this game. But the Cowboys' ability to sort of control the clock, keep the Giants defense on their heels, and force the Giants offense to have as few possessions as possible is going to make a really tough game for the Giants.
This is such a tough matchup to pick too. I saw a stat recently that the Cowboys are 9-1 in the last 10 matchups of this series. And then I saw a model that predicts the Cowboys to score 32.5 points and the Giants to score 8 points in this game. And I think there's somewhere in between here, because I think being home Monday night, I don't know if I trust Cooper Rush on the road. And the Giants have obviously won their games against teams that are struggling, right? We know what Carolina's going through. And obviously the Titans haven't won a game so far this season. So with that in mind, KCR, let's turn to you first. Prediction for Monday night's game between the Giants and the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Giants being at 2-0 is,
it's great.
Said it. They've faced some bad teams. They've had some. I mean, they have really had no business even winning in Week 1 against the Titans. Titans missed a game-winning field goal there. The Cowboys are obviously without their top quarterback, but we still think that the Cowboys go into the Meadowlands and pull out a victory. We've got 21-18 Dallas.
And Nicholas, what about you? What do you got score-wise, prediction-wise for Monday?
I'm going with KCR. I said it's really enjoyable to watch just one player like Micah Parsons is at the top of his game, being so consistently dominant. And I think he is again. And I think he treats everybody to a Monday night show and kind of like gives more rise to his defensive player of the year campaign, which has already started in earnest already through 2 weeks. So I think that he is a star again for the Cowboys, and they pull this one out.
The Cowboys have the talent on the offensive and defensive side of the football. They have the 9-1 record in the last 10 games. I think something magical is brewing Monday night. The white towels will probably be distributed. As someone who's been going to Giant games since I was 7 years old, it'll be rocking in the Meadowlands. And I also think the Giants will pull this out. I'm bucking the trend. I'm going with the upset. We leave it there. I thank yous again to Nicholas McGee, Kyle Cunningham-Rhoads. Check out their work over at theanalyst.com. The stats and insights that we mentioned today on the broadcast, you can check it out at PressBox Live, the new tool from Stats Perform. Head to statsperform.com today to find out more about PressBox Live. can help augment your game day coverage. My thank you to you guys again. We will see you in a few weeks with week 5 as we look at the NFL preview. For KCR, Kyle Cunningham-Rhoads, Nicholas McGee, I am Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.